Okay, so we started last week and so looked at the different approaches to leadership. One was the qualities approach, what kind of characteristics or qualities a leader should have. And we saw there that there's not really, there are lots of different lists of qualities that leaders should have, and often they don't overlap. Although it's a useful way of looking at and analysing leadership, it has its limitations. And so we're looking then at some more functional leadership. What are the functions that a leader has to perform? And so this is the, good evening. This is the diagram we used last week to try to analyze what a leader has to do. So whenever you have a group or a team, and it could be a small team of 5 or 6 people, or even a huge organizations, but basically groups or teams or institutions or organizations, businesses, they exist to achieve a task. There's a job that they have to do. So if it's a business, it may be producing something. But of course, it's not enough just to produce it, you also have to market it and sell it. If you're running a farm, then obviously your task is farming. So every group then, every team has a certain task which needs to be achieved. And then also the other element there is the team itself. And so teams vary, depends on, different teams have a different character, all groups have their own character, and also groups naturally made up of individuals. And the individuals on a group, in a team, also have their own character. And so what a leader has to do then is he has to be thinking about these different areas, achieving the task, making sure the task is accomplished. Because if a team or a group doesn't have a task, you might think, oh, why are we here? I would prefer to be doing something else. So, if a group or a team isn't focused upon accomplishing the task, then people think, oh, what's the point in us being here? It's rather meaningless being here. But also, the team itself has to have a certain group dynamic. There's certain things that need to be done to maintain the team, to inspire the team, to motivate the team, so the team works together in harmony, that everybody on the team feels that they have some part to play in the team, some way in which they can contribute. And of course, that's because the team is made up of individuals, and every individual has their own character, their own potential, their own abilities. And if the people on the team can feel, yes, actually on this team, I can fulfill my potential. I am needed on this team. I can find a niche on this team. And through working together on this team to fulfill this task, I can actually fulfill my own purpose. I can actually develop and grow myself. And so the team leader then needs to make sure that all these areas are taken care of. The individuals on the team feel taken care of. They feel looked after. They feel that somebody's interested, not just in getting something out of them, but actually more interested in investing something into them so they can actually develop and grow through this experience of being together on this team. And then when these 3 circles are all being fulfilled, then people are happy. People enjoy the work. Actually, the work's no longer work, it's fun. People enjoy being together, they enjoy working together, they work together as a team, and they achieve the task. And when you actually have a goal and you achieve the task, feel an incredible sense of joy and elation. And so that's what a leader needs to do. Try and make sure all the 3 of these circles are being covered. So we'll have a look then a little bit more into the functions of leadership. But also, it's not just being a good leader, it's also being a leader for the good. So you can have some very good leaders, but they might be running organized crime units. Or they may be gang leaders. They may have a task. Okay, we're going to go and, map out and we're going to expand our territory. They may be able to motivate and get their little gang into action, and they may take care of all the people on their team, on their gang. So it's not just being a good leader, it's also being a leader for the good, leadership for good. So to think about it, is this task worthwhile? Is it worthwhile to rob this bank? And for some people, most people, actually almost everybody, actually no, that's not a worthwhile task. it's against my conscience to do this. And so everybody,
Recently with a tunnel. Did you read that?
yes, I did. I didn't get. I mean, it was a very long tunnel, but I only got a few £1,000s. It's under Blockbuster or something, wasn't it? Anyway, never mind. Is this task worthwhile? And if it's worthwhile, then people feel, yes, this is worth my doing this. It's worth my investing myself in doing this, in committing myself to this. And you might think, what is the value of this to society? Is the work that I'm doing making the world in which I live a better place or a worse place? Yeah? So again, these are the kind of things that people think about. Is this a worthwhile thing that I'm doing? Is it making my society, my community a better place? And in that case, how would you actually measure that kind of value? How do you measure the value of what it is that you're doing? Any ideas? Sorry? How would you measure the value of what you were doing? To evaluate, is this a good thing to be doing or not a good thing to be doing?
What came from it?
Sorry?
From what came out of it?
Such as?
The fruits of your labour, like whether the result was good or...
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, at the end of the day, am I making people happy? In that sense, you feel valuable. Yes, it's making the world a better place. So how do you measure whether you're making people happy or not? Keep giving you money.
Give them questionnaires.
You can give them questionnaires. But if you're a business, how can you tell whether you're making your customers happy? That's right. If you produce good quality things at a reasonable price with good customer service, then generally speaking, you'll be profitable. If on the other hand, you're producing things which are poor quality, or which are very overpriced, or in which you're really rude to your customers and you don't take care of them, very quickly you're going to go out of business. Yeah? So one can evaluate these things, and in business it's the bottom line. If you're not making a profit, then obviously people aren't rewarding you for what you're doing. They don't feel that what you're doing is worth doing. And again, if we're in a group, we might think, well, are the values of this group the kind of values that I feel comfortable with? Some groups I worked on when I was a teenager, I used to get holiday jobs. One holiday I worked on a building site, and they were effing and blinding, and every other word was a swear word. And it was interesting, because that's not how I spoke, and I felt really uncomfortable when they were talking like this. And because I never spoke like this, and I was just a teenager, after a while, they started to feel really uncomfortable as well. Well, they started to clean up the language, at least when I was around. And you think about these things. These are kind of values that I share, the kind of humor that these people have, the kind of attitudes that these kind of people have. Do I feel comfortable here? Or do I have to lower my standards to work with this group? Another thing is, as I said, do I share the same values as a group? And is this task worthwhile in my eyes? And after a while, I had a friend who was, he worked in the city, and the particular company he was an accountant, the particular group he was working with in the city, he felt really uncomfortable because he felt there was something dishonest about the way they were working, and he felt this, I don't feel comfortable doing this. I don't feel this work is worthwhile. It's against my values. And so even though he's getting well paid, he decided to change jobs, to find something which he felt, this is worthwhile work that I'm doing. This is meaningful work I'm doing. Again, these are sort of things about leadership for the good. Okay, so let's have a look then at functional leadership, some of the functions of leadership, which I'll go through in more detail: defining the task, planning, briefing, initiating, controlling, supporting, informing, and evaluating. So let's have a look at some of these. Okay, one of the most important things then is defining the task. As I said, every group is together for a particular task. But if you don't know what the task is, you don't know what it is that you're trying to achieve, is it easy to achieve it? No. So one of the first things a leader has to do is, a very important thing, is to define the task. Because it's not just his task, he needs, as I explained about last time, he needs to motivate people so that people feel, actually, this is my task, this is our task. It's something which we're working on to accomplish together. Not, oh, this is the boss, this is the leader, this is the boss, he's told us we have to do this, so we'll do it. But actually you need to present this task in a way that people feel this is meaningful, this is worthwhile, I want to commit myself to do this task. But in order to be able to do that, it has to be communicated. It has to be explained very clearly what the task is, and also to explain to people why we're doing it. Maybe there's some urgency behind it. If people feel, well, okay, this is interesting, but I can't see the point in working particularly hard, but if you can explain to a person actually why you're doing it, and there may be a time deadline by which it needs to be done, then people may be more motivated to work hard and get it done quickly. So explain to people why they're doing it and defining achievable objectives as well. So breaking the task down. So the task may be a very big task, but then sometimes you think about a task, you think about climbing Mount Everest, you probably never do it. But you think about, oh, okay, to get there, I need to break it down into these objectives. There's base camp, and there's this, and this, and this. And you break it down into achievable objectives, steps, and stages. Then it becomes achievable. And then you can think, yes, I can do that tomorrow. Yeah, I can do that. It becomes something achievable. So you need to break these things down into the task, down into objectives and things like that. So this is why planning then is very important. So planning is bridging the gap between where you are and where you want to be. So this is where we are, and that's where we want to be. So the question is, how do we get there? You need to draw up a plan to get from A to B. Whether it's geographically getting from A to B, how are we going to get there? Are we going to fly, get a boat, drive? Or, we want to make this particular machine. Okay, so how are we going to do it? What is it that we need? So it's very important then to have a plan. And so, answering question, how are we going to achieve the task? Who's going to do what? When does it have to be done by? And to break down the task into lots of little bits and to make sure that all these little bits are done by somebody. Because unless you have a very, very clear plan, then you may set off to achieve something or do something, but if you haven't got all the plan worked out in detail and there's some part that's missing, it'll just stop, just fail in some way. That's why a very clear plan is necessary. So you may be a very nice person, you may have all sorts of wonderful qualities of charisma and this, that, and inspiring and everything, but unless you're able to come up with a good plan, which is achievable, then people are going to get incredibly frustrated. There's nothing more frustrating than working on it, being part of a team where the leader hasn't got a clear plan of how to achieve what it is you want to achieve, because you end up just wasting lots and lots of time, and then the whole thing becomes very meaningless. So even though the person may be a very nice person, unless they're organized, able to plan things clearly, and show how this plan can be fulfilled, then it's a disaster generally. As Samya Moon said, the first criteria of leadership is organization. You have to be able to organize efficiently. And so a leader may not be a very nice person, but as long as they have a decent plan and they get the job done, you feel, okay, I can go along with that. I don't mind I'm happy to work with this because I know that we're going to get the job done. Whereas maybe a very nice person who isn't able to plan or organize things, you can't get the job done, you feel this is a waste of time. So how do you make a plan? Who makes the plan then? Should it be the leader who makes a plan? Or everybody together makes a plan? Or something in between?
If everybody makes it together, but it's not a bad thing for a leader to come up with some ideas and then brainstorm.
Okay, so when would you say, on what conditions would it be good for everybody to make the plan together?
Well, if they've all got different tasks within that whatever the plan
Right.
is, everybody has a different job, so they can say what they could contribute.
Okay.
Different abilities.
Right, so within the big plan, then everybody has their own tasks, small tasks, subdivided tasks, and so they would make a plan how to fulfill their own particular task, that sort of thing. So you're delegating things. So you're saying to, right, this is what I want you to do, but you have to work out how to do it. Okay, that sort of idea. So that works when the person knows how, when you can be sure that person has the, I thought somebody's hand up at the back there. So that works when you can be sure that person has the knowledge or skills or ability to do it. So what happens if you say to somebody, well, this is what you need to do, but they don't have the skills, knowledge, ability to do it?
Well, then you either have to help them or find somebody else.
That's right. So you have to be aware then. So in terms of drawing up plans, you have to be aware of who's on the team, how capable they are, how much experience they have, how much knowledge they have to be able to fulfill that. So you may actually have to fill in a lot of the gaps, or you may just be able to say to somebody, right, you've done this before, you know how to do it, go and work out a plan, and then that's also a good way. So you have to, as a leader then, you have to be aware of all the different people on the team, each one's abilities and capabilities. So sometimes the leader may come up with a plan, because the whole plan, or sometimes may do it together. It varies, depends upon the situation.
So the plan and the goal are not necessarily the same thing?
No, the plan is how you get to the goal. So the goal is there, but in order to get there, you need a plan. Step by step, you have to get there, but in order to get there, you have to get here first. In order to get here, you have to get here. In order to get here, you have to get here. So you have to break it. Sometimes you can it's like a reverse engineering. This is where we want to be, but in order to get there, we need to get to here. And it's like rewinding the thing. Yes, okay, now this is where we are. Okay, and this is where, in order to get there, this is where we need to be tomorrow or next week. Yeah, so that's the different ways you can draw up a plan. That's one way, it's like a sort of reverse engineering. But plan is what you need to get to the goal, achieve the goal, the target. Okay, this is Sunny Moon again. I'm telling you this because we should have the best organization in the world. Our planning organization must be workable, not just idealistic. Why are you laughing, Joanna?
It's a great idea, but unfortunately a lot of the time that hasn't been the case.
Hasn't been the case. So do you think we were a bit too idealistic then?
Very idealistic.
Yes.
And it was very unfortunate. But
It was, yeah.
I'm not the only one laughing.
So sometimes one can be really very idealistic, but more important than being idealistic, it has to be something that's going to work. At the end of the day.
The goal was idealistic and that's okay, but the plan shouldn't be a fantasy, the plan should be practical.
The plan should be practical, but it has to be based upon reality, it has to be based upon an understanding this is the way people are, this is the reality of our situation, not this is how I wish people were, and I'm going to assume that people are the way they're not. You know what I mean? In that sense, you can be very idealistic. So, one has to be, realistic in that sense. It has to be something workable. Okay, he's talking here about small teams. As a team captain, you should always figure out how much better you can do this month than last month. Then you can make a plan, taking into consideration all the personalities on your team. Make a workable plan and really stretch yourself to fulfill it. So a leader then has to do a lot of thinking. Has to understand the psychology, the mentality of human beings, human nature very well, understand each person's, strengths and weaknesses, the way some people are more emotional, some people more rational. Everyone's different in some way. And so have to weld the team together into a team. Weld very, very different individuals, often together into a team so they can accomplish it. And once you can do that, then you can really stretch yourself and accomplish all sorts of things. Sometimes when you're making a plan, you need to think outside the box. You need to think. It's often called lateral thinking. If lateral thinking, you look at it, you look at the problem from a different angle, sort of a sideways look at a problem. So drawing up plans, it's what you have to do often. Just look at it from a different point of view, a different angle. Thinking outside the box, this sort of thing. Okay, so another very important thing is is briefing, explaining to people what's going on. So communication then, and communication skills are very, very important for a leader. So you have to explain to people very clearly what the task is. You have to explain to every single person what their particular role is in fulfilling this task. And explain the task also as something which is valuable and meaningful. Because people always feel more motivated to do something when they feel that what they're doing is important or valuable or meaningful. And so before you explain to somebody, before you explain to the team or the group what's going on, you have to think it through for yourself. You have to work it out all in your own mind so you can clearly explain to others, very simply, what it's all about. There's no point in having long, rambling speeches because people get lost. You have to be able to break everything down into very, very clear and simple stages so that people can understand what's going on, and you explain it very, very clearly and very, very simply, and also trying to bring it alive so people can imagine themselves doing it, and they can imagine the task going ahead, and they can imagine themselves fulfilling and accomplishing the task. And when you're doing it, you need to be yourself as well. And just standing there, briefing people, explaining to them what the task is, how they're going to do it, in a very simple way that everybody feels they have a part to play, that their part is important in order for the whole thing to be accomplished. So again, something even says about this, the fastest, easiest way to find the best method is to adopt the best man's technique for yourself. You have to standardize your method of doing things. You must have a clear idea of what you're going to do, and all your members must know what they're going to do. If anyone has a better way of doing things, of course, let him suggest it. Organization, a strong sense of responsibility, enthusiasm, long hours of work are all essential, but still one more crucial element, clear direction. So people have to have a very clear direction in order to know where they're going, in order to be able to fulfill the task.
What do you mean by standardize your method?
Standardize it. You find the best practice, what works best.
Yeah. That means then have everybody use that practice.
Sorry?
And have everybody else also...
Well, yes, adopt it if it suits them and fits, yes. That's what Ford did with making a factory to produce cars. Found out what is the best method that works, and he standardized it. That meant everybody could learn it very quickly. So Peter the Great, for example, when he became the Tsar in Russia, he realized that Russia is very, very backwards, very behind. And so he traveled around Europe incognito, trying to learn from Europeans how they could improve things in Russia. And so he went to Holland and observed these amazing boats that the Dutch made. But he realized that they didn't do it with any plans. They had no plans for making the boats. Every single carpenter in himself knew what to do, because this tradition had been passed on for generations. And he knew how to carve the wood and what shape it should be and what length and everything. And he realized that even though they produced extraordinary boats, he realized he could never bring this method back to Russia without importing all the people. It wasn't something that's reproducible. And then he went to England and he saw the boats that the English are making, and he realized, yes, this is broken down into plans, and actually anybody can build this kind of boat. It's very simple. Yeah? So in that sense, it's very standardized. And so the English then, to build the Royal Navy, they created the very first factory in the world down near Portsmouth to produce ropes and all sorts of things. So instead of everything being built by hand by a skilled artisan who knew how to do it, you produce a standard method of producing it, which lots of people could learn very, very quickly. And so they're able to generate and produce vast numbers of ships and end up controlling the oceans.
Sometimes it seems the European government is obsessed with standardization. They don't necessarily want that as the best thing, is it for its own sake?
It's not good when governments standardize things, no, because as soon as the government standardizes something, then it becomes something which is a matter of law. But as soon as it becomes a law, then to do it differently, you're breaking the law, you're committing a criminal offense, which means it's impossible for there to improve things or to have any innovation. Yeah? So as soon as the state steps in and standardizes things, it means progress then becomes impossible. Because in order to make progress, you need to be able to experiment, find a better way of doing something, But in order to experiment, you have to have the freedom to experiment and to do it differently. And if the law says you have to do it this way, then you can't experiment without breaking the law. So lots of restrictions then in medical research, and lots and lots of restrictions because of these kind of laws which are laid down. So it's good to have best practice, but also to have the freedom to be able to improve, the best practice. Okay, another important function for a leader is controlling. So that means, once you set out the plan, once you made sure that everybody is clear about what their particular role in fulfilling this plan is, and everybody knows what their own individual tasks are and how these individual tasks fit into the bigger plan, then it's very important then that once the ball has started rolling, it's very important for the leader to keep tabs on what's happening, to be able to be aware of everything that's going on, be aware of the overall picture, but also to be aware of what all the different groups within that bigger team might be doing, what the individuals in that team might be doing, and to make sure that everything is going smoothly. So if you can see one particular person's got stuck, instead of just, okay, well, that person's not doing very well, has to go and step in and say, well, can I help? Is there a problem here? Is there an issue which we need to resolve? Because if you can't do your bit, then even if everybody else does their bit, the whole thing's going to fail. Yeah. So a leader then has to, be listening, watching, observing, listening to reports about everything that's going on, so he can have his finger on the pulse, as it were. Walking around the factory, for example, observing what's happening. But the goal actually is to intervene as little as possible. If things are working well, then that's fine. Don't get involved. Just watch the person doing well. And so, if everything is explained very clearly, everybody understands what they're doing, then actually the leader can often just relax.
There's an old motto.
Sorry?
There's an old motto, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, yeah. If it's
Try and fix it.
And you might think, well, that person's doing it in that way. It's not the best way, but it's that's the way that person finds works best for that person, and they're fulfilling the task and getting on with it. And so the goal is to intervene as little as possible, actually, if everything's working. Just, maybe just a little touch here, a little touch there, just a little bit of guidance here or there, supporting people, encouraging people, motivating people, but not intervening and interfering in another person's responsibility. Yeah? If they're doing it and it's working well, then they're exercising their responsibility, and through exercising their responsibility, they're finding meaning in the work that they're doing. If you then interfere, then you're taking that responsibility away from them, and in that sense, you're treating them as less than an adult, as less than a professional, and actually you're taking away the joy of that person. So you shouldn't interfere. Yeah, get involved at things that are going on. So what's an ideal leader? Well, this is Lao Tzu, Chinese philosopher. He said the best leaders are those the people hardly know exist. Yeah? The best leaders are the ones that people hardly know they exist. The reason is because they set everything up so well that it just takes on a life of its own. If they didn't turn up for work, everything will carry on working because everything is set up, everybody's motivated, everybody knows clearly what they should be doing. Everybody feels this is my task, this is my responsibility, I want to do it because I find meaning in it for its own sake. And then if the leader isn't around, everything carries on. Yeah, it's like so those are the best leaders. The next best leader is a leader who is loved and praised. So everybody loves them and praises them, says lots of nice things about them. Next comes the one who is feared. So people, when the person appears, everybody, better get on with my work and work harder. So they're feared. And the worst is the leader that is despised. Okay, they may be despised because they don't organize things well, or they don't plan things well, or they don't care, or they're not very knowledgeable. All kinds of reasons they may be despised.
They go around shouting at people.
Or they go around shouting at people. All sorts of reasons, that people just despise them because they feel, I'm getting on with it, what's your problem? Why are you interfering? Yeah. And just wanting to, be there. So again, Lao Tzu, the best leaders value their words and use them sparingly. So they don't go around shouting at people, they don't go around telling people what to do, but they just watch and sometimes may say something to encourage a person, or if they can see something is going to go wrong, then they very quickly intervene to correct it, yes? But if otherwise they just let people get on. When he or she has accomplished their task, the people say, amazing, we did it by ourselves, yes? Okay, so as a good leader, he makes everybody feel we did it, yes? So everybody feels that kind of incredible sense of accomplishment. We did it ourselves. Okay, the worst kind of a leader is the one who says, I did it, and takes all the credit and glory for themselves, okay? So the best kind of leader is one that nobody notices there, and everybody feels their own personal sense of accomplishment, personal sense of growth, feels they've done it themselves. So another important task of a leader then is evaluating. So one of the most important things that leaders have to do, they have to make decisions. But in order to make a decision, what do you need? Sorry? A good brain?
Authority.
Yeah, you need authority. What else?
Some ideas.
What?
Need some ideas.
You need ideas, you need knowledge, yes? Yeah, you need to have all the information, the knowledge, in order to be able to make an informed decision. That means you have to have understanding, you have to understand what's going on so you can make the right decision. So when a leader makes a good decision, things go well. If a leader, a person with a lot of responsibility, makes a bad decision, this affects everybody and everything under them, okay? So it's one of the most important tasks of a leader then is decision making. And that's why it's very important that leaders should study, be well educated, understand very well what's going on. But also they have to, it's called, game playing or something? When you imagine all sorts of different scenarios. You imagine, Game theory, yes. Okay, everything's going well, that's fine, but then you imagine, well, supposing this happened, then what would I do? Supposing that happened, what would I do? So when something happens, a leader then is not surprised. They've already thought, okay, if this happens, that's the best thing to do. So they're not having...
It's called making a contingency plan.
Making lots of contingency plans. So they go into a situation hoping plan A is going to work, but if plan A doesn't come about, they've already got plan B, C, and D, okay? And you can see this, for example, in government. If you're a prime minister, you have people sitting in your cabinet, and one day somebody might resign. So I remember one day, you probably remember, Joanna, Michael Heseltine had a row with Mrs. Thatcher, and he walked out of the cabinet of a situation, and at the end of the meeting, Mrs. Cabinet announced who his replacement was. She'd already figured it out. If he goes, then I'm going to promote this person. So it already game planned everything. So not taken by surprise and think, oh, well, that was a bit of a shock. I'll announce his replacement in a week's time. And you can see that's what's going on now in the situation in the Ukraine. What happened was completely unexpected. Nobody had any contingency plans. What happens if this? What happens if that? Sorry? Putin had a plan, because he had a big plan, and when this happened, he realized that's an opportunity to do this. But it wasn't that Putin planned it to happen in this way. It's just that when these events came about and these opportunities came about, he stepped in and seized the opportunity. The West, on the other hand, Europe, America, completely taken by surprise. Couldn't imagine that this would happen. Yeah? So they weren't good leaders. They weren't planning. They weren't thinking all the different possibilities that might take place. They just assumed that things would just carry on like this. So a leader then has to be able to understand, okay, so has to think, okay, if I do this, then what are the possible consequences going to be? Yes? So sometimes a bad leader then will make a decision, and then from that will flow all kinds of bad consequences which he didn't expect. That's a disaster. Yeah, so you have to think, okay, if I do this, how is it going to affect this and this and this and this and this? What are the ripples going to be? Okay, it may look like a good idea at the time, you know, but what are the implications going to be in the future, in the days, weeks, months, years, even decades into the future? So people need to think about these things. A good leader then, he makes the decision and implements it, but then of course you have to live with the consequences of the decision. So you have to think about what are the potential consequences, good and bad, and weigh up the potential consequences and then decide, is it the right thing to do or not? Yeah. So again, it's a very important thing to be able to do. Again, evaluating team performance. So you evaluate, this is the plan. Okay, how are we fulfilling the plan? Was it a good plan? You know, how can the plan be improved the next time around? Yeah, so continually reflecting, continually thinking about what it is that we're doing. Okay, oh, that didn't work so well. Next time, we'll do it this way. Yeah, so always learning. So it's always a learning process. So leaders then should always be learning, should always know much more than anybody else on their team. And always thinking about, you know, what point have we really achieved the task? But also leaders should be very self-critical, evaluating their own performance. Oh, when I said that to that person, it didn't go so well. Maybe, you know, I need to change and do things differently next time around. These are all sort of things. Again, this is some of Moon's ideas. If I see how he evaluates things, if I see a high team average, I think that is good. But if I see that each member on a team has a similar high average, then I value that team even more because I know that is a stable team. Once you're stable as a leader, your team will grow. For your first few months or even the first year, it's too easy to tell about you. Too early to tell about you. Thank you. But after a long time, if your teams are still up and down, with some members having very high results and others very low results, even though your team average is very good, the situation reflects your poor organization. So again, one needs to look and evaluate and adjust things so that everybody, you know, can feel that they're working well. Everyone feels that you know, things are, you know, suited to them. Okay, another thing is very important is motivating. So different theories about motivating. Leaders need to motivate people. One very common theory, I think, since the 50s and 60s is the idea of theory X and theory Y. So theory X, as a leader, you think, oh, you know, the people on my team, nobody wants to do any work. They don't like working. They dislike working. In order to get them to work, I have to force them, or I've got to bribe them, or I've got to shout at them to get them to work. And you know, they need a strong direction, and they're not very creative, they're not very responsible. So I have to keep on organizing them and telling them and giving them directions. So if one thinks about the members of your team that that's the way they are, then of course your style of leadership will suit that. If on the other hand, you think, well, actually, you know, work is good for people. I enjoy working. People enjoy working. When people, you know, have work and a task which they feel is meaningful and valuable, they are self-motivated. They don't need to be driven. They don't need to be shouted at or pushed. They become self-motivated because they enjoy the work for its own sake. And, you know, then people often enjoy getting tasks and targets and being stretched. Because if you can be stretched and pushed out of your comfort zone and you can find, wow, I could do something I didn't think I could do, then you feel good about yourself. You feel you're growing because you're being stretched. And, you know, then also you expect people to be responsible and to want to be creative, and so you delegate, you give people responsibility, you encourage them to be creative. So again, that leads to a different style of leadership. If you think about people, if you think people are theory X, that's the way people are, or as a leader you think people are like theory Y, different views of human nature, then of course your leadership style will be different. Now, of course, there always are some people who are bone idle and do need a carrot or a stick, but generally speaking, most people most people want to be happy. Most people want to enjoy their work. Most people want to work hard, because at the end of the day you feel good if you worked hard and you've been able to accomplish something, sense of accomplishment. That's what the way most people are like that, actually. And so if you bear that in mind and just use a theory X only for the odd person, then things are likely to go much better. Okay? And, of course, if you treat everybody like they're all lazy, then the hard-working ones, what are they going to do? The ones who enjoy work and you treat them badly, what are they going to do? Or before they walk out and think, I'm going to work somewhere else. I'm going to find a company, a business where they can appreciate me, where they can understand that I enjoy working, they value my kind of ability, they'll give me the freedom to be creative and to be responsible. And so the best people, they migrate, they leave those kind of rubbish businesses and they go and work somewhere else. I always remember, remember Woolworths when it was around? I always remember walking into Woolworths, and do you ever remember the people who used to work in Woolworths? They were always, anyway, they weren't the best quality workers, actually. And whereas if you walked into John Lewis, it's very different feeling, atmosphere in the store, and the people working in John Lewis, they're all partners, they all have an interest in the success of the company, they all have the freedom to be able to do things and interact. And Woolworths, though, was incredibly badly managed. It was very much ran on a theory X kind of thing. So you go into these different kinds of shops, and if you just hang around these different kinds of shops, you pick up the atmosphere in the shop, you pick up the relationship between the manager and the people who are working there, and you can tell, after a while, whether that business is going to be successful or not. Another important thing as a leader is delegating. So how much people delegate depends a lot upon their character, the leader's character. So, for example, it also depends upon your subordinates, as I said, how knowledgeable they are, how experienced they are, how socially skilled they may be. So if you have people working on your team who are very knowledgeable and skilled, then you can delegate a lot of the authority to them. You can delegate a lot of the decision-making to them, and actually they'll thrive on that. They'll thrive on that delegation. On the other hand, if you realize, actually, this person, they've just joined the team, I'm not sure about them, it's better to, just to watch them first and to make sure they're given direction. It's much easier to take away control over a person than to impose it. If you give someone too much responsibility and freedom and they mess up and you have to step in, it's much worse than supervising someone quite closely to start with, realizing actually they're quite capable, I don't need to supervise them that well, I can trust them, and then you give them that freedom and responsibility. It's much better to do it that way, to supervise somebody new closely, to make sure they know how to do it. If they don't know how to do it, then you need to be supervising them, so you can teach them and show them what needs to be done. But then once they know how to do it, you can see they know, you can trust them, and then you can delegate more and more to them. But it's, to go the other way around is actually quite damaging, not good at all. And bye, thanks. And then the situation, again, it depends on the task. Oh, okay. It's cold out there tonight. And it depends also on the situation, the task that needs to be done. So for example, if you're, if you're in charge of a fire engine, and you just arrived in a burning building, as the captain of the fire engine, you have to make a lot of decisions very, very quickly, and you have to, basically do that yourself. And also it depends sometimes on the time constraints. So I'll have a look at the sort of spectrum of delegation in a minute. There's Sun Myung Moon again. At the same time, let your members give suggestions about the best method to use and give comments about themselves. If you're confident of having the best way, do not just insist that your members follow your way. If one of them comes up to suggest that his own idea, even if you think he's wrong, don't say, no, just shut up and listen to me. Rather, try to find the good points in his suggestion and agree with him on those. If you come to realize that someone's actually better than you, in some way, then you can always accept suggestions from him. You need to have vast information. So for example, you look at someone like Alan Sugar, who left school when he was about 15 or 16, and who never went to university, yet actually established and set up many incredibly successful and profitable companies. You might think, well, how did he do it? Well, the reason is because he surrounds himself with people who are much better educated than he is, who are much more knowledgeable about different things than he is. And his good quality is managing people and being able to take in the information they give him and then make good decisions. So that's what a good leader's like that. They try to surround themselves with people who are better than themselves, more knowledgeable, more capable themselves, and then their quality, their skill is managing the team, taking care of all the individuals, formulating the task clearly so everybody can work towards that task, fulfilling that task. But it's very important here. If somebody comes up with a better idea than you have, should you be happy or unhappy? Happy. You think, great, I've got people who know more than me. So you should harness their ideas and say, that's a great idea, let's do it. Yeah? And how do you think that person feels?
Very good.
They feel really good. They feel appreciated, the value. That person is able to appreciate what I have to give and is able to, take it on board and make my idea, put the whole team behind it. Yeah? So in that sense, leaders need to be very humble. Not think, I'm the leader, I have a monopoly on ideas. If I didn't come up with the idea, then obviously it's a rubbish idea. And some leaders, they feel very threatened if they have people who come up with better ideas than they do. But actually a good leader doesn't feel threatened, they just feel happy. Great, I'm glad somebody's got better ideas than me.
It's a temptation for leaders to feel that because they're in authority, they're also more valuable somehow, so they associate their power and leadership with their sense of value in the group. So if they see somebody else who has a better idea than them, and acknowledging that is almost like transferring value to that person away from themselves.
Yeah.
So there's a temptation to...
Right. But that's what a good leader does, because as Lao Tzu said, a good leader is invisible. Because actually they're just harnessing all the abilities and talents of everyone on their team towards fulfilling the task. And their gift is not that they got all the best ideas, their gift is able to formulate the task, keep everybody happy, help everyone to, take care of everybody, and keep the whole team focused on fulfilling the task, and making sure the people on the team, he's got the knowledgeable people, the kind of people he needs on the team.
So is there a difference between a leader and a manager?
Yes, there is. So managing is much more day-to-day. So, for example, in order to get from London to New York on a ship, well, okay, so you give the direction, but managing the ship means adjusting to the waves and the weather and everything like that. You're continuously, almost intuitively, having to make it up as you go along when you're navigating or steering a ship. You feel through this, and that's why you need to have all the knowledge to be able to do it, because you're managing the situation, and as things pop up, you're managing it. So that's where you're going, but in order to get there, you have to manage all the little events that come up, all the little mistakes that happen, all the little things that were unexpected. You have to manage everything that comes along. So leaders also need to be good managers in that sense. It's not enough just to be charismatic. You have to be able to manage things when they go wrong. Okay, this has gone wrong. What am I going to do? How am I going to adjust to that?
So is a leader a visionary then? He's somebody who sees the overall goal and he can see the big picture.
Well, that's part of it, but that's not enough, because there are lots of functions that need to be fulfilled by the leader. One is the task and be able to explain it, but you have to do all the other things as well. It's not enough to be a visionary. There are plenty of visionaries who never got anything done. You can have the vision, but unless you know how to get from A to B in a practical, workable way, and you can put together a team and a plan, and a lot of these details, it doesn't require a lot of vision, it requires a lot of hard work and a lot of hard thinking, to anticipate things.